Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to Theoryforge Chronicles. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs, Legendary Neurotoxin, and Sog. And we actually have a very special guest today, Duchess Sellayne Darkholm from the Kingdom of Blackheart. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Doing good. Hello. Excited for the midweek episode and to have our awesome guest on here.
So we'll get into all that. So we thank you everyone for joining us. This is sort of not our usual time. The next 2 weeks we'll kind of be doing 4 shows instead of 2, and we have started getting back to having very special guests on. So we are very happy to have you, and I'm sure people probably, for the most part, who are watching us already know who you are. But if you can just kind of briefly let everyone know sort of your role within Illyria.
Well, I'm definitely notorious, and people probably have seen me around the COE common room, often being snarky. But yeah, I'm Sellayne. I'm in the Kingdom of Blackheart, and I'm the Duchess of Duskholm, which I won during the Lost Vault.
Nice, congrats.
But I thought you said you're the hostess of Darkholm.
Well, that's what a Dross would say, but we're not there yet.
Oh, okay. But you changed your name in Discord, right? So that people can start getting used to it?
Yes, it's a slow process for people to get accustomed to the Dross terms for nobility.
Okay.
Yep. I'm looking forward to more people getting used to using their tribal names for things. I think it'll be a slow transition, and it takes that people in those leadership levels transitioning over and talking about it, or some groups may never move that way, but I'm all for it. Real quick, since this is our first show during domain and settlement selection, I want to first just go around the table and say, what do you guys like about it? We have weeks of talking about what's good about this and what's interesting that's happening. After this, we can do like the post-mortem, if they do it again, how do we think they should do it better kind of talk. But I know Slade, you actually have picked so far. So what are the things that you liked about the system, and how did it feel for you when you were going through the process?
It kind of felt like I finally got to sleep with the guy I've been looking at for years, and he was done in 1 minute. That's what it.
Awesome.
Man, now I feel like I'm going to be disappointed.
Apparently. I mean, unless there's nothing wrong with that.
Have you been watching the picks much, Diggs?
I have not, but I've been watching the flurry of notifications on my phone. People are very excited and seem to be enjoying this more than previous events, in my estimation. So I'm just loving sitting back and watching the community activity. And I kind of like this idea of having tribal names for nobility, and I'm interested to see how many players adopt it. And it's kind of fascinating to me that this is a way to start role playing, even though lots of people say that they don't role play and don't know how to role play and don't feel comfortable role playing. And this is not an MMORPG, so I don't know that role-playing was even expected to be a huge part of it. But
I think some people feel like role-playing is just, typing as if they're at a Renaissance fair and don't realize play yourself as your character, in context with the game. Talk how you talk. That's how people are talking in this game, how people talk in modern vernacular. Yep. Nobody's putting on an accent. Nobody's using archaic terms except ones that have specifically been put back into this game for a specific purpose. To that extent, it's almost impossible not to role play. You would have to specifically I don't know.
Talk about football.
Talk about IRL stuff. That's what I was going to say. Is that's about the only thing you can do is just go completely outside of the game, and that's going to be lame.
Well, I feel like for RP, the line between immersive and cringy is a very delicate one. And RP can quickly get cringy if people don't have some kind of story already developed in their head that they're following.
Right. I agree.
Well, I think if you just talk about the game, what's happening in the game. I mean, in previous MMORPGs, and this whole tangent thing, but we end up talking about, well, there's nothing to talk about because we all play the same story. And I think one of the great things about Chronicles of Illyria is that it will be dynamically changing, and we'll want to know. We'll be wanting to talk about the changes in the game. When Phantom's county gets taken over by a coup, then people want to talk about that. So I think it's going to be very natural. I'm hoping to see that. Again, I just think the tribal names for nobility is a great way to go and kind of start differentiating the tribes. That should be fun.
I like how you put that, Diggs, because I've said I would much rather a year from now get to tell the story of how someone came and kicked me out of my county in some big old fight than how I raised my 1,000th cow. So,
yeah, I'm along this idea of seeing how people picked and then attributing a tribe to them. So, we have some upcoming guests, and now I'm thinking about them in terms of the tribe that they're going to be playing. So next Wednesday we'll have John Warren. He picked today, and he picked a really neat weird duchy. So it'll be we have a weird on the show. Now it's thinking of the players in terms of the tribe that they're going to be playing, and then starting to think about how what they're doing kind of is in line with that tribe, just partially just because they're going to have to deal with the environment that they're placing in. They're going to have the affinities and disadvantages in the game when they get in that are already associated with these tribes. So people are already going to be acting in role just because they have to, because the stage has been set so well that they can't not act in role. And that's part of what excites me, just seeing. So
they could try to ignore it, but this does lead me to questions for our guest, like why Dross and why this particular spot that you picked. What enticed you to choose your pick?
For me, I've always liked the weaker ones, the ones that seem like the underdogs, the unpopular. That's always been what I'm drawn to, is the more unique and unusual and maybe a bit more challenging. It just seems more interesting to me. So that was initially why I liked the Dross, is because most people didn't at the time the tribe write-up was really.
But so you chose Dross just because they were the underdog, but now that you've chosen them, are there attributes that you're hoping to focus on? And again, how did that weigh into your pick on the map?
Well, for me, I want to create a navy. I want to have a lot of naval trade, naval forces, and also for discovery. And Dross have the iron gut, so it allows them to drink salt water and eat rotten food. And on a ship, that's a huge help because you don't have to worry about your food going bad. You don't have to worry about running out of water and carrying that. You can carry other supplies on your ship. So I feel like it makes them more robust as far as a naval force.
Yeah, you mentioned something right before we started about having that bay and the size of the bay. And so were you interested in ships becoming available soon? I think there was something about that. what other things about the Bay, now that you have a spot there, what are you thinking about? What are you contemplating now?
I'm focusing on making a trade capital with an O, because I'm going to be working with K6 to move goods back and forth between the two of us. And I feel like having a strong trade center between two kingdoms isn't going to be as common, especially using water to move goods. So it's going to be a huge draw for people. I think it'll be a center of culture too, because we're going to have two very large capitals very close to each other. And also, we have this interesting river that helps us move goods into K6 that is controlled by my duchy. Even though I have both banks of the river under my control, we still use it between the two kingdoms to move goods into the bay and out of the bay. So I think logistically, it's incredibly interesting. And I think it's going to be just a huge draw for people who might be nervous to even come to the swamp or to the jungle because of all the toxins and animals and stuff like that. It could become a haven for a large mishmash of different tribes to visit safely by coming there via water.
Mm-hmm. And your trade partner, what tribe are they?
Genoa and Dross.
Genoa.
And Torusk. Genoa, Dross, Torusk. Yeah, those three tribes will be the predominant ones running through the harbor.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, I like this idea. I had not thought, I like the idea of the dross and the swamp and poisons. I actually have this fantasy of them inadvertently spreading plague because they don't know. It's not affecting them, right? But I had not thought about the idea of drinking salt water while on the ship. Well, but you shouldn't be having to sail. You aren't planning to sail very far necessarily.
Yeah, my ultimate goal is research and development through trade, so I can get deep sea travel and travel to the new continent. That's my ultimate.
You said discovery. That's right.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what you meant by that. Okay, that sounds really cool. Wow.
Before we get back to more details about Sellayne's individual duchy and the Kingdom of Blackheart as a whole, Phantom X, in your looking at the maps, is there anything that stood out to you looking in Sanctifandry? How do you feel about your pick, and how has that changed?
My pick's last, so.
Wait, but you just
I get a pick.
Looked.
Yes, I know I've looked. I mean, anyone that's watched us or knows my drive is not necessarily the same as other people's drive as far as leadership within the world. So I think it's more like looking towards smaller areas, sort of less management. So that, I mean, that's more or less, and then anything with farmland. So, ultimately I'll eventually just run, hopefully not a not broken farm, as things grow and move on. But that's basically the two things for me. I don't have I have plans, but nothing that necessarily affects kind of where. I don't really want to be on the coast because I don't want to have to deal with. I mean, I'd like to be on the coast because it's probably going to look pretty and it'll be fun. But the defense and all of the things that sort of come with that, I'm just kind of shy away from that. And for the same reasons, probably look more. Why are you laughing?
I know. That sounds great.
Yeah. So that's
I just
the main
see you reserving yourself some land and resources. You get kicked out, but you have your little reserve. You sell that to some rich person in exchange for some beachside property, and it's just all right, time to relax.
Playing the long game.
the first character to legitimately retire in Chronicles of Blackheart.
Yeah, that'll be me. I've wrecked enough. I don't even get to spark again before I retire. It's the very first go around.
Just
done.
giving away, spending all of your fortune so that your legitimate heir has nothing, and passing on nothing through your bloodline. It's like
You're just gonna
like
leave
America.
You're gonna leave him a lot of debts and a bad
Yes.
reputation with your 5-finger discounts.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Exactly. And I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, I do want to have fun with this. This is sort of, like I said, I've always sort of played the good route and sort of never really explored beyond that as far as role playing and things. So I'm going to have fun with this. But, in all seriousness, I do hope that, once we start getting in there, that there are things, the management side is fun, and maybe I actually start to enjoy that. And maybe later I'll kick myself for not trying to select something larger. I don't know. But right now.
I mean, you still could be good. Good is on the track with evil. It just sounds like you're going to be very, 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 very,
yes,
very,
I should go back. I keep
chaotic.
saying good. Yes, chaotic good. That is a very good place, good way to put it.
So like a Robin Hood?
Yeah.
Just chaotic. I think more chaotic than Robin Hood, it sounds like.
A mix.
But
Yeah, so quick, status of the map here if we're talking about any West. So so far we've seen 3 picks in Aranor, the Queen, a somewhat surprise in Pine Craven. I don't know the details of how that all got figured out or who it is. And then our favorite meme lord Huldrick in Dawnmire.
Winner of the Sunstone.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's like the best guy on Discord because I think he'll have fun with anything, and that's awesome. Ashland is almost full already. I am unaware if all of the rest of these duchies are reserved or not because y'all are the Ashland people, not me. But that one South Gull Reach here is fully surrounded, so that sounds like a...
Yeah, I think the consensus on that was, oh, sure, it'd be great if a random person dropped in and worked with us, because if they don't, we'll just take it.
Yeah, and what is that? Artorius, Polite, and Sev all around that area.
Yeah, wouldn't last long if it came down.
I don't think that's a place that you jump in thinking that you're gonna fight the people around you.
Yeah, it's like jumping into a Shark Tank if you place there and you're unknown.
Yep. Well, unless you integrate quickly, it's fine.
Yeah, if you play ball, if you join in the community and you help them out, then things are going to go well for you too. It's right in the center of a bunch of trade.
Moving to the west here in Valyria, Azeron controlling the entire land bridge with his royal duchy, and Lady Amberley with the double duchy in the north, and a bunch of unknowns. We'll see. There's a lot of chatter about that, but previously that I just got to see what happens there. Down below, Tyria at this point, I think the only surprise in the area was that the Thorns had a very, very high pick, and I don't know that everyone understood that to begin with. But all these are people in the plan.
I think they understood. They just refused to listen. I think that's what actually happened.
Okay. I was surprised by that Rose Flats pick in the last hour or so because it's just an awkward location. But from what I understand, it's somebody that they know and someone that's part of the group, so it was expected. Down in Riftwood, the King's Duchy is Drashuri, and Terragwin and Plumes are Ilamos and Bridgebone. So Bridgebone is the duchy that Sellayne was talking about doing a lot of trade with. I will be personally placing a county in Alamos somewhere unless it all gets taken, because I'm a very, very late pick. And then our last but not least, here we have Blackheart, where Sellayne's Duskholm, with Queen Rowena's pick, I think was a little bit surprising by taking that tiny, for outsiders at least, taking that tiny little connector and placing his capital right at the border between the two duchies. I thought that was pretty exciting. And because it means he'll have a border with almost anybody that could be a new member of their community, or hostile claim, especially since Bexterius and Tensley in the north have that just all claimed. So I think we're in a pretty good spot moving into the single duchies, and not knowing exactly how many are unknown for sure. I think I'm hoping that it gets a little more exciting, like waiting 3.5 hours for something to happen. It's a little bit of a roller coaster for me.
I think we only have 2 more double duchies and the rest are singles. So like in the next day or so, we should see all of the multis placed.
Yeah, and we'll be able to talk more about that on Friday and see where we are going into the weekend. So Blackheart, I was able to at PAX stop by and meet a whole bunch of people from Blackheart at the meetup, and it was a really impressive community. Like that, as I got there, everyone was really comfortable with each other. It was like real friendly, and part of that I think has to do with the family mentality of the community. Sellayne, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, we've been going to these events together for years now. It's not like a new thing. It's been happening for at least the last 3 years, and it's multiple PAXs every year and other events. And even like Atlas, who's in chat now, when he's flying back and forth, like he'll stop in and visit with the Queen, or when the Queen is overseas, she'll visit with other people. So it's a very close knit group because we all know each other very, very well, and it's very much a family group. I mean, that's how we talk to each other, like a family. It's how we treat each other. So it's much different, I think, than other kingdoms.
And then that also translates to an in-game thing where you guys have this concept of a royal family with different members. And do you guys have like a whole family tree drawn out for that, or is it just like you're a member of the family? You've been around long enough that you're really a part of us. Welcome. How do people get into the family? Where do they fit in?
The family tree is more like a trunk, because the Darkholms only reproduce with other Darkholms, so we don't have a lot of branches. To become part of the royal family, it's a very long, intense application process, and it's about so much character development, but it's also about your personality, and how well you would mesh with the family, what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, like comfort level. But the Queen does have one saying that she puts on almost everything. It's, when you feel like you don't belong, you belong to me. We're very much that kind of group where if you feel like you've been ousted or not accepted, like, we'll accept you.
And that's another theme that I got in interacting with the community. There was this idea of being inclusive in the political sense as much as in the like friendly and welcoming sense. And it was really neat to see. But how does that translate into building a community? I've only ever built communities or been part of communities where, I'm doing something fun and other people want to do fun things. How do you attract such diversity in a way that people don't feel different? Anybody could weigh in on that. I don't know the answer.
I feel like it's not being judgmental, or maybe having an experience in your life with somebody who's similar and being able to connect with somebody on like a very fundamental level. Like, I know this is your struggle. I've been there too. And that relation, the camaraderie that comes with that, sharing difficult situations and being, trusting somebody enough to actually share that about yourself with them. That opens up a lot of doors, and it builds this trust, and comfort level that we have, I think, far and beyond what anybody else has.
I see lots of nodding. Somebody say something.
Well, it's very hard to be raw with somebody that you talk to on the internet, but when you meet them in person, like most of us have, it brings you more comfort. Like, I'm sure a lot of you have been in a similar situation.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that is kind of the blessing and the curse of meeting people over the internet, and even getting to know them to a certain extent. There's still always a bit of this kind of disconnection compared to if you had met them in a real life setting first and then continue communicating over the internet. And because of that, yes, there is kind of a tendency for people who have just met on the internet for the first time to maybe not have the same sort of respect or pay the same kind of attention as if it was somebody standing right in front of them. So you're right.
Well, you can humanize the person. They're not just text in a Discord,
Exactly.
It creates that connection.
Are you a 1 or a 0? Or a combination of 1s and 0s?
No, there's so much truth. I mean, out of you three, I consider Diggs the least favorite because I've not met him. No, in all seriousness, though, I mean yeah. I mean, what
I tried to beat Diggs.
We waved. We saw each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, that is true. That connection. Yeah.
So with this close-knit, family-oriented, really welcoming community, and we translate this we get into the game. So like building the community is great, making friends from everywhere and all different walks of life is great. When you get into the game, I got a little bit of a sense that there might be some like friendly rivalries for certain things. But how do you keep all that together when now you're competitive for resources, you're competitive for trade routes, somebody is getting attacked, it might not be in my personal best interest to go help them right now. How does this translate in the future? Or speculate for anybody. I'm just kind of opening that up.
Well, I feel like generally, even in my professional life, if I meet somebody who's doing something better than me, it encourages me to want to learn how they're doing it better so I can be better, right? So it creates a healthy competition. And I think that it's necessary, even if you're a family, to have a healthy competition so you're encouraging the other person to improve.
Can you stop having like super good answers?
Well, let's see. I'm completely non-competitive, so I just like to help people improve, just to help them improve, because I'm cooperative. I'm a cooperative.
He was born aware in real life.
Mm-hmm. That's probably close to being true.
This is where the social experiment will come in, because this is by far, the other game we cover, even comparing to that, this community by far has been the most that I've been a part of that's been involved. And, yes, there are fights here and there, but for the most part, really coming together to help bring a game to life. So it will be very interesting when eventually the doors open and everyone steps in to see what happens. I would predict, the folks like you all that have met each other, things will, there will be, like you said, there'll be competition, but it'll be healthy. Where I'm curious to see what happens is when, we have the core community now is sort of how everything comes together or doesn't, or comes apart once you start getting all of the extra players in that have not been a part of this part, and sort of how that pulls at the strings of everything and everyone. It'll be super interesting. I fully expect, like Blackheart, people who have met and who have known each other forever, that this will be something that you do 10 years from now. There will be that core that does that, but it'll be interesting to see, really within 6 months, how much changes compared to
there's people who are treating this like a short-term relationship. Those people are going to struggle. If you don't build trust now with the people you're going to be around for 10 years, hopefully, you guys will see each other through the end. If you can't trust them now, if you're questioning their loyalty now, you're setting yourself up for a very difficult road. And it doesn't take a lot of effort, is what I'm trying to say, to get to know somebody. Like, kind of remove the game for a minute and just try and get to know the person and be honest with them. If you're questioning their loyalty or you don't trust them, be honest and tell them, because you're doing not only yourself a disservice, but you're doing the other person a disservice, because they might be very loyal. They might trust you. But if you put that wall up between each other, you're just going to fail very early on.
I think that's like extremely ambitious. Like it's like the nicest way to be ambitious, because it's about getting people together and building trust to work towards this grand goal. Like, not ambition in the like unhealthy way, but I have personally struggled and like held back from building relationships in the game, at least until this point, because I knew what I wanted to play in the game. I didn't know who was going to be there. I didn't know what was going on. I had to explain this in Duchy chat before. I was like, well, what Duchy did you come from? I was like, well, 2 years ago I talked about, I talked to Polite about being a Duchy, but I didn't stick around because I found out that wasn't the right place for me. And until then, I've just been waiting, saying, I want to live kind of like right there, in this little area. So as people come, now I'm like in this huge organization that, decided as a group where they wanted to place, because they had such high IP that they could pick the spot, talking to kings and stuff, pick the spot on the map where they wanted to be. And it's amazing to see how close some of these communities have already become that I'd just ignored for a long time. Reads.
It's funny.
Well, this is where it begins. This is
what?
This is where, so this is what's so interesting for me.
Wait, we have to read it out loud. About an hour ago, 4 duchies of Kairos in North American East declared their independence.
Civil War.
But can that even happen before the citizen? Can't do the mechanics of the game support that? Can you have?
Well, they better do it now.
Yeah, right.
Man,
this is the most leverage you'll ever have, right? Because there's nothing that actually, But this is where I find this so interesting. Because you do it's sort of at its core a game where you have to have you have to cooperate with other people, right? You are not going to get very far if you do not. You're going to have to, because you can't be a crafter of everything, a fighter of every type. You have to rely on other people. At the same time, the game is specifically set up for change to occur through negative interactions, right? For the eventually there will be war, there will be fights. So where this balance settles is just super interesting. But yeah, this is declaring independence already.
I mean, they were kind of pushed into a corner by their monarchs and activity and general lack of interest. So I support them. More power to you guys.
Uh-oh. Sounds like a guy above me.
I mean, ultimately, everyone should enjoy what they're doing. So, I mean, if that makes them happy, yeah, I mean, do it. Polite is in chat, so I have to be careful with my approach.
You know, I don't think it was something that they had thought of previously. I just think it is something that happened out of necessity because they have an aloof monarch.
So one of the things that you mentioned, Sellayne, that I thought was kind of interesting is you said setting the game aside. And, you know, I play these types of games for the RP factor, not so much for the game factor, although I'm finding more and more, especially in MMORPGs, lots of people focus on the game elements. And it seems even, I mean, I would expect Neuro to maybe be more focused on game elements than the rest of us. But I'm hearing a lot through the other three of you talk about more the world. I mean, and this is a multiplayer evolving online world. So we are making decisions about, you know, where we would like to be in the world and what we would like to do in the world versus game mechanics, and especially when we're thinking about classes or powers or all of that stuff that, or gear that drives MMORPGs specifically. And I do wonder, when we're talking about a family feel in the real life community, I keep wondering how that's going to translate to the different duchies. And actually, that's funny because you don't have dukes and duchesses, you have hosts, but you still have a duchy.
Well, that's only
that's
1/3 of the
mechanical.
kingdom. Yeah, those just names, like in the Dross hierarchy.
I know, but I'm a linguist, so now stuff like that ends up messing with my head. But so and I see that lots of the names in Blackheart seem to have similar Darkholm, Duskholm, Darkholm, Duskholm, things like that. So I wonder, does that, as you guys talk with each other about your regions, how do your similar interests come into play?
Well, the names come about through character development. So like I was saying, for the royal family, we have a very long application process. It's a lot of writing and creative development. The names of the places that we've named for DSS come from that character development. There's a connection, there's a story attached to each word, a reason, a story, how it came to be. It's not just random, oh, I like the way this sounds. There's a reason for everything. And that's what we want to show to the world, is that we work very hard on this story so you can become immersed in it. So you can understand at each point, every place that you travel, you can reference a story that the Queen has posted, because the Queen posts tons of RP stories about the lands and how they came to be. We want people to feel connected to the places before they actually get into the game.
And right, and Darkholm is a different region. So I see that's your last name, but it's also the name of a neighboring region, right?
That's the king's or queen's line
Surname.
Yeah, it's the family.
Okay. And so is Darkholm the capital?
No, it's not. Coldforge is the capital city.
Okay.
But Darkholm is the royal duchy.
Yeah.
Royal duchy. Okay, that's the term for it. Okay.
And inside Ironheart is the queen's county, and within that, the capital city is Coldforge, which is a gigantic, rich port right there on the river.
Yeah, it has a seaside castle on the cliff. It's going to be like the whole story of the Darkholms is actually in a book that the Queen has written.
Nice.
Yeah, should be published soon. So people can read it and understand by even just looking at the map why that place is there and why it's named that. There's actually a book that goes with it. So it's.
Well, I guess I'll have to read that when it's available. I'm ready.
All of us are. We've been waiting a very long time for it to be published. So soon.
So I think that, relating all of this back to kind of what's going on right now, that domain selection is the perfect additional mechanical tool to create that attachment to the land, to really binds all of that into place, where before there's all of this abstract planning, you're talking about these things, you have ideas about the history behind the family and what that means, and you have goals, and then you finally realized, the region that the kingdom was going to be in once the picks were made, so you could fully flesh that out. And then now you're getting to that point where, like, you're fusing all of that together, and the only step left is to actually, like, get in there and live it. And I think that's it's a really exciting part about domain selection, because, like, as I'm looking at in a position where I'm going to be picking after basically everybody who picks a county, and thinking, well, I have these areas that from what I know, from the people that I know are looking in the region, they're not interested in these areas. I'm looking at it like, well, what does that mean? Like, who am I now if I place there? Because that changes a little bit.
And this is why I've encouraged so many people in the community to brand yourself with a story, because a person's going to read that story and maybe there's something in their life that makes them feel connected to it. They're going to see it on the map and they're going to see themselves there, and they're going to want to pick it because they have a connection now because of a story that you came up with to brand yourself. So put a little bit of effort in, make some cool lore. If you're uncomfortable doing it, there's tons of people out here that'll help you. I'll help you. Send me a message, but please, like, for the sake of Valyria, get creative and make a story.
Yeah. Oh, I was just recently sharing around the story that I've kind of got going for my characters. How many? Just as a raw text file, it's 7.92 kilobytes. I don't know how much actual text that is, pages. But let's see. I'll have to find it later. But yeah, I definitely like that idea of writing the character. It's definitely a worthwhile sort of thing. It's something that I've observed in D&D. Somebody stumbles in, first time playing the character or whatever. They didn't write any backstory. They just rolled it. They have some hard times kind of really getting into the role and figuring out who and what their character is. It's kind of a discovery process, which can be fun in its own way, but it's that works better if you're like playing an amnesiac sort of character. Otherwise, if you're a character existing in a world, you already have a backstory, you already have a background. So personally, I do definitely advocate, like, write a big story, write a backstory, start with something simple, and then expand upon it, and then expand upon it. It doesn't have to be something very complicated. Just start with 2 sentences that kind of cover the broad strokes, and then fill in some detail. Again, like you said, there's plenty of us out here that are more than happy to help people out with that sort of thing. And the end result is that you don't just have this document that you can use as a reference for your character, but then as you play that character, you're infusing that into the kind of personality of what you're bringing to the game. Even more so, what I'm hoping is that what the OPC scripts will end up being, if you never touch them ever, will kind of reflect on the way that you play as a player, such that, if you do play a certain way, even when you're not around, it's still going to play that way for you. That's really my major hope. And so, even with that, if you know what your character is going to be doing and you have that sort of stuff down, going to one of the script masters to be able to set all of that stuff up makes perfect sense to me.
Well, and I also know just from talking to people that sometimes making the story for their character is more difficult than zooming out a lot, like I did, for instance, because it was difficult for me. Is I just started with, how did I get this land? I looked at my package. I'm a count. Okay, how did this start? Like, what person in my family was the first count? And that's where I started my story, and it helped me develop my character, because now I could say, this person, this person APR in my story, he was given a count because he went around and helped people during a time of war, and the count was no longer around. So the Duke gave him the title of count, and he was a merchant, and that's where my whole story started.
So were you able to, as you finally got to place your duchy, and as you won the title in the Lost Vault event, did that help you to flesh out the story even more as little like real-ish things in the game were happening?
Yes, because this is not my first character. My first character was Gwenor Belrose. Some of you may have remembered. That's where I started the story of my count. But then when I became a royal family member, I got a new persona. I created a new character from that to fit in with the lore that was already written for the family. So I had to have a little bit of a transition period, but I still took elements that I had from my count, how I became a countess, from that story, and I reused some of those pieces because I like them, and there's no problem with that. You might get rid of one character, but you might like a couple pieces of it, and so you keep it for the next iteration.
When we first started doing this show, and I really started to get into the community and see what was going on, we'd hear things like this, all this planning and the stories. And my initial reaction, it was honestly just like, what is going on? This is kind of nuts. And sort of slowly started to realize that my reaction to that is because there's really just not been a game like this to create a community like this. So it was really alien, right? You just don't really think. Neuro, I think you said like something like World of Warcraft. You sort of already have a story laid out for you, right? You're going through the same story as everyone. And now I sort of look back and I think about all this, and it's just amazing. It's quite wonderful, really, that people care so much already. I'm really excited to see what happens. So, thought about creating the backstory for Theoryforge. Haven't yet.
So a little bit of chatter in chat about the idea of RP servers and MMOs. And as I said in chat, MMORP is optional because nothing matters in a theme park. It's basically a single player game with multiplayers and a whole bunch of other people on top of that. It's not the existence of other people and interacting with them doesn't actually matter, other than getting your ass kicked in PvP or finding a trade partner or finding people to do raids with. So to that extent, it makes sense why there would be a division of the RP servers and enforcing that versus not with conventional MMO. It's a bit different with the Meow. You can't really separate the two because I've said this on previous episodes, nothing you're doing in the game world is not playing a role of some sort. Whether you don't want to, really get into the role, if you're going to talk about football and, burp on the local voice chat or whatever, burp and grunt and be rude or whatever, hey, that's you. People aren't going to want to interact with you, and you're going to find that out pretty quickly. But it's one of those things that you can just focus on PvP and mechanics and not really get into the story of your character and still have a wonderful time, and the people around you can have a wonderful time. But in trying to get into the mechanics of all of this stuff and all of the lore and all the nitty gritty and everything that's going to lead to making the most efficient badass fighter, all of the people that you worked with to find that information along the way, guess what? They are role playing. You did just play a role in the world. You did just do something informative to help advance the game. So whether you like it or not, just being raw, pedantically technical about combat mechanics, you're still essentially role playing. It's just a different way of doing it.
Yeah, and I think with COE and the gossip system, role playing is not optional. if you're not immersed in the story, if you're not following it closely, especially if you're like a spy type character, you don't have the option to not role.
Right.
Right.
You
And
can role play
again,
around people, right? So inevitably, I think there will be a horde of players that when the server opens that join just to go kill stuff, because that is what many gamers do. But you can still role play around that, right? So there's a horde coming through. Yeah. So there's my point being there's a place for everyone. So go ahead, Dix.
yeah, but the even if you're trying to kill stuff, the way you kill stuff is not going to be the same as everybody else in the game, which is very different. We aren't going to have cookie cutter builds because we're going to be learning to fight from different people, and we're going to be talking about that. Like, why do you fight like that? Well, because I trained with this person. Who is that person? Well, he used to be here, but he died. I mean, just the nature of the game itself, those people that we trained with 3 months ago will probably have died, and new people will have to train with somebody different or their protege or something. I mean, you're going to be talking about what happened and what changed because it's honestly, not all the same.
That's the thing that I like about. I almost want that to be one of the selling point to the gamer, like one of the tagline quotes or whatever. He used to be here, but he died. Mm-hmm. Yep. Nope. NPCs die, people change. I think that's going to be kind of a fun aspect, actually seeing different faces, different people in the world, not going to the same exact goblin with a Star Trek reference in this neutral town to get your engineering stuff on. Like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, I had a quick question I wanted to ask earlier, since we have somebody with title and land for whom this may or may not have had some effect. There's been a lot of this and that back and forth about access to resources and what was initially being presented and different iterations of what the expectation of what resources would be available where, populations where, and all of that sort of stuff. And there a lot of people had a lot of things to say. A loud minority, I would say, especially getting to the point where they were, I would say, in violation of the terms and service, and action could definitely be taken if it was desired. You folks know the stream I'm talking about. I don't need to reference it. But it's with all the resource stuff, do you feel like it affected your duchy? Do you feel like it affected the kingdom? Do you feel like it made any effect on any decisions whatsoever, or was it all kind of a small issue blown out of proportion and really just like, it doesn't matter, everybody's going to be able to get everything, there's going to be trade? Like the fact that Ashland is the only kingdom that doesn't have one of the resources, they don't have sand. It's like, for me, that's a big deal. But
no, I think the only problem here is this disgusting sense of entitlement a lot of people seem to have. Yeah, you put a few $1,000s into COE and, they did make some promises and things are subject to change, but you're responsible for your sense of entitlement.
Sellayne has opinions. I love it.
All right. I guess I said that was a fast question, but you answered much faster than it took me to say it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. That's, yeah. I see y'all shaking your heads. So
I'm just tired of the bitching and moaning. There just comes a point where you're just like, shut up already.
Yeah.
I'm past that point, if you can't tell.
Well, let's keep it going. No, just I totally agree. Right, like and that's. I wish I still had the links because Snipe had sort of done I think a Twitter. he had posted on Twitter, this was, probably months ago, sort of a series of tweets sort of about the challenges of having something like this in early access where people have put quite a bit of money in, and sort of what the expectation was. Like a perfect series. I wish I'd dig it up. But yeah, it's like you are responsible for your own, and you knew going in what this was. You knew it was going to change. So I don't understand what the deal is, but yeah, you should join us every Friday. Okay.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because we one of the things that we're doing for domain and settlement selection, and we're having these nice guests join us. We have this show and 3 more lined up for over the next few weeks, and for each one of them we will be giving away an in-game gift for 600 exposition points. I've been posting the link for how you can enter in chat, and in just to give people just about 1 more minute to go enter at the last minute if they want. But this is really our way of saying, hey, we like being part of this community. We want to support, and as we get into the more of the world building experiences, giving away exposition points just adds to growing the world. So it's the perfect way that we can contribute. So I'm going to draw one of the 4 winners today. I'll do another one on Friday, and then 2 shows next week. We'll do the last ones.
So we are sort of near the end here. So I wanted to give Duchess Darkholm a chance. I think you've done a great job already explaining why people should actually come, be part of your kingdom, part of your duchy. But the last few, I guess, minute or 2 we have left, if you wanted to, again, just sort of let everyone know why.
Well, I mean, my duchy is pretty grim, honestly. The 3 pillars are loyalty, honesty, and excellence. And I don't feel like a lot of people quite understand what that means, because I will hold you to a standard that's much higher than anything you could ever reach. And I do that on purpose. So you're always striving for self-improvement and to do better, to do more, to be a better person. So it's very, very difficult to be in my duchy because there's a lot of people who I know are like overachievers, and if they can't reach a goal the first time or even the 10th time, they tend to give up. But that's not acceptable to me. So if you're the kind of person who really likes to be challenged, then Duskholm's great for you. But if you're a little bit weak, it's probably not a great fit.
In other words, don't join her. She'll beat you down and put you in, force you to submit, and kick you when you're down there. That's what I heard.
If you have a good, strong core, if you have integrity, if you're an honest person, if you're loyal, and you always want to do better, this is a great place for you. But if you just want to be a casual PvEer and don't take direction, it's probably not a great place.
Gauntlet thrown. Shots fired.
I'm all about setting standards. I wish more people would have the same view as me. But
I like it, telling people what they need to hear. So we are. So you want to?
I did draw 1 winner. The entry is under the name Warrior Soul 19. So if someone can send me a message, I will actually type something in here.
Oh, I see him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Send me the message with the name of the COE account that I can send you the gift, and you will have it. You're in chat. You're ready to go. You'll have it in minutes. So congratulations. I hope you put it to good use. Don't kill me with it, or if you do, at least teabag me and tell the world.
All right. So with that, Sellayne, thank you very much for joining us. We had a lot of fun talking to you. And totally open invitation to come back anytime you want.
You guys are so brave. I warned you too.
We were Yeah, you blew us away. It was really great having you. If we could have guests like you all the time, we would. I told you before, we're looking for more hosts too.
You hear that, Polite? I set the standard pretty high today for you tomorrow.
Polite's already
You're
been
on
on
your
the
toes.
show, and we invited him back, so
Yeah,
He's good people.
Yeah, so I was actually going to say, so we will be back on Friday with Polite. And yeah, so again, thanks for watching, and we hope you all have a good night.
Bye.
See ya.
See you later.